then we'll open up.
Everybody for coming. I can't tell you how excited we are. The new season's upon us. We did a whole lot of changes over the summer, a lot of new additions. Really, I think we addressed a lot of needs. I think we spent the summer really investing time with our players, and it was a huge sacrifice. I can't thank Wes and his staff enough for the time we spent. We'll touch on that during this session, but I couldn't be more excited. I'm grateful for what's ahead, grateful for all the work that Wes has put in, the players have put in, and can't wait to get going.
Yeah, it's a very unique situation. We've had a lot of movement over the last probably 8 months, and so it's a new team, but it's the same. Very familiar feel to it. Got to give Tom and his staff a ton of credit, just as far as hitting through the draft, free agency. I think we really had an opportunity to upgrade, strengthen and bolster our roster. So I'm extremely excited about where we are right now as a group, and a lot of challenges that lie ahead. But certainly something we all embrace and look forward to.
Open it up.
First of all, Tommy, and of course, Wes, happy birthday, by the way. Let's get that started. Guys, it's been a few unusual off seasons, as we all know. So my question to both of you is, how advantageous has this full off season been for you as a coach and for you as a GM?
You know what? It's 2 points. It's been the first time that I think a lot of guys have had a full off season. Think about Rui and Denny, just because of their young careers, the norm has not been the norm. So having this stretch of time is going to feel a little different. It's unique to them. I think for us, it gives us a little bit more balance from a staff perspective. There's a normal workflow. Obviously, we want to play deep into the summer. We want to have short off seasons. That's the goal. But the way it ended in its own way, I think it gave us a different opportunity to get out, spend time with players, reevaluate things from the top down. What we like, don't like, things we want to change or alter. And it gave us a little bit more time to peel back more layers. I think that's going to help us as we get into preseason and the training camp.
I think to your point, we had spent 18 months cramming 3 seasons into prior to this. So now this summer I can hit its normal cadence. And normal to us is not necessarily normal to outside world, but getting players back with their national team, watching Chris Staffs and what he did with Latvia qualifying. Hopefully they have to get one more win and they qualify for the World Cup next summer. And what Danny was able to do with Eurobasket, what Mike Williams was able to go with Team USA down to Brazil with Craig Sword. Those are normal things on the calendar too. I hadn't been to Eurobasket since 2017. They hadn't existed, that they had to take it off the calendar. So those things are normal too. But I think what we were able to have here, very unique. Really since May, we've had players in the gym and coaches working with them. We had some great additions. We'll talk about the trades, the free agency, the draft, but also as a staff, we have another coach that's made a big impression on everybody. So I think, to your point, getting back to normal is a great thing. And now accelerating the schedule, we're sprinting to the starting line. We're starting early. And this trip that's ahead of us is a fantastic opportunity for us as an organization to play Golden State, the world champs, play them in Japan, and the opportunity to go and experience that culture. I think it's fantastic. Obviously, we have a player that's looking forward to going home as well. So there's a lot of good stories.
Follow up on that real quick. On the Japan trip, obviously, that's a good schedule for the players. So what are going to be some of the top priorities for you, the organization, to trying to glean from that experience?
Well, bottom line, so far camp. So there are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of logistics to maneuver, but we still have to take full advantage of those days. Factor in the flights and how do you normalize when you get back. Our medical team's done a terrific job. Our operations people have kept us informed of all the things we have to do. There's some things we're going to want to do. I think Rui's excited for the opportunity to kind of give us an insider look at his home country, some things that are important to him. We want to take full advantage of that and experience all of what Japan has to offer, culturally, historically. I'm a big fan of cuisine, so I'm looking forward to that dynamic. But we can't lose sight of this is still a business trip, and we're there for part of training camp. So we have to take full advantage of those days and get as much in as we can.
Coach, with 11 returning players and some familiarity, especially with Morris, what do you see his impact being on the team, and how immediate do you think you'll see that?
Well, actually, I've seen some of the immediate impact already. He's a connector, and he's a guy that I'm not sure how, but around the league, everyone knows Monte, and he does a terrific job of ingratiating himself, you know, beyond just the between the lines. He's obviously a point guard at heart. I think he's accelerated his offensive game over the last few years. That showed, you know, going from a G League player to, you know, a roster guy into the rotation and eventually started. So, you know, it's a great story, but, you know, he's a guy that deserves credit. He's earned and carved out his own way. But he prides himself on running the team. And I think that's going to be a huge benefit to this team. Because he's going to know what the group needs at the right time.
And how do you see Bradley Beal helping facilitate that?
Well, they're going to play off each other, you know, and I don't want to lose sight of, you know, guys like DeLon Wright, like Will Barton. You know, there's a lot of pieces that gives us the flexibility to put a different group out there, different pairings. And still, there's not going to be a ton of drop off. And that's the most exciting piece. It gives us a lot of roster balance.
Couple questions. One, historically, teams that take trips overseas sometimes have difficulty when they get back, kind of regaining their footing. It's a few years ago.
Thanks, yeah.
What's you mentioned medical and operations. What's the kind of symbiosis been with all those groups in terms of trying to mitigate some of that carry on, and specifically with Rui? Obviously, there's going to be a lot on his plate by design, and I'm sure he wants it, but how do you keep him from getting over?
Take one, take the other.
I think I'll say this. When you go on the trip that we're going on, it's just time intensive. So there's no way around that. And if we spend time dwelling on, okay, this is going to really be an awful thing, then that's what's going to be the message. I think we're treating it as, hey, this is a heck of an experience. We've really taken great precaution in terms of the times that we're going to practice, what we're going to eat, when we're going to sleep, even waking people up on the plane, down to that kind of detail. At the end of the day, people are going to have to adjust. And we understand that. We know when we come back, it's going to take some time. We're going to really, to your point, kind of ease back in. And we have two preseason games when we get back to kind of figure that back end out. But these first two games, we have 3 practices before essentially we play. You know, so that kind of resonates in our head. That's why it was so important after Labor Day. This gym's been through, had some opportunities to get some runs, guys getting their legs underneath them. We're learning as we go. Fortunately, we have somebody that goes back and forth to Japan frequently, and we're tapping into Rui's knowledge of how to adjust as an athlete. You know, when we get older, we got all different things we got to do. But young guys, Rui can school them up a little bit. So looking forward to that. I think we're in a good place. The medical staff's done a great job.
Oh, yeah, just, you know, the medical staff down from the practice times, I think the sleep times, the nutritionists as far as when to eat, what to eat. I think they're all trying to find the best practice to help mitigate any lag or lasting effects, but there's no way around it. It is what it is, and I think guys are going to be excited for the opportunity. Obviously, anytime you play the defending national NBA championship, it's like that should get your juices going a bit. And to do that in a foreign country, I think that's it's a great opportunity.
Just kind of to follow up on, hi everybody, nice tan, Wes, on DA's question, but what kind of factors are in place to keep Rui from, or at least kind of help mitigate the burnout that he talked a little bit about last season coming off of the Olympics and everything?
Sure. I'll say this, that they've done a great job. His management staff with his agency has already done most of the legwork of getting all the necessary photo shoots, anything that's going to happen out of the way so he can get there and focus on basketball. Certainly there'll be some exchange and get an opportunity to get in front of his fans and everything. But I think he's in a great place. I think he's looking forward to going back. I think the time that we're on the ground, essentially, there's not going to be a whole lot of opportunity to do anything other than basketball. So that's a good thing. He's looking forward to seeing people, reconnecting with the community, but just being in front of those fans, I think that's really the big coming out for him. It'll be the first time he's been back since the Olympics. So that's that'll take care of itself. I think the photo shoots, the interviews, all that stuff, a lot of it's going to get done ahead of time. You know, and I salute people that have taken that advantage because it'll be a far better interview here than he will be there, I guarantee.
And then Wes, have Brad and KP gotten on the floor together? I know guys just kind of been in casually, and camp hasn't really started yet, but have they had a chance to just kind of feel each other out?
A
And
little bit.
will Brad be full go for training camp, no restrictions with the wrist?
I don't want to answer for the medical staff on that, but right now it looks great. So I can tell you what the eyes say, but
Yeah, tell me what you say.
well, I think he'll be ready, and I don't want to jump the gun. I think once again, it'd be great to have everyone full strength to do what we need to do, but and I think we also have to be smart, make sure that we're attacking this thing strategically. And we're measured with everything we do. It's great to have guys out there for 2 preseason games, but it's a long season, and we want to make sure it's a long season. So I'm not gonna get overly consumed with who's available, how much guys are gonna play. We do only have 4 preseason games, so we need to make sure that certain groups get minutes on the floor together. They develop that on-court synergy sooner than later, but I don't think we need to rush into that and worry about that on this trip.
I would add the connectivity these guys have had this summer. It's been wonderful. They're very familiar with each other, but to your point, Brad, Kuz, and KP really didn't play together at all last year. So taking this opportunity in September to do a lot of things, not just on the floor, but off the floor has been great. And, I look back 2 years ago, we were in the playoffs against Philly. There's 3 guys that played in that series that are still on this team, right? And the 2 guys that didn't really play, Danny was injured, and Anthony Gill was spot minutes. But Gaff, Rui, Bradley, that's all that's left. So it is a new team. It's not new to us because we're familiar with these guys. They've been around, but they're new to each other, a lot of these players. And I think they're going to blend well. I think one person not to sleep on, it's just been a fantastic veteran presence for us, and Ben Tosh gives his ability to bring people together. We got a lot of good connectors. I think there's bookends, and I just kind of brag about these guys for a minute, but they're really high character people that love to be here, love to represent DC. Can't wait to get in front of the fans and show that this is new, that this is a new team, and we're excited. I think I can't go back enough and say the time that Wes's staff spent away from their families to go be with these players on their turf, going to Latvia. What Wes is, he's getting first name basis with a lot of pilots, and
I didn't travel in.
yeah, it's amazing when you look back, because I realize what we're asking. You go from the draft to free agency to summer league, and you kind of want to get some downtime. That's when we were really ramping up even more. And the players all got together in LA, went out and saw them, and they're in action. We had 14 of our 16 guys who were there. Denny and KP were playing with their national team. Everybody else was there. I think that speaks well to what these players want to accomplish this season. It's their team. We can do the best job possible. We're here to be the guardrails, but ultimately this team, is up to them what they want to do and go out and get it, because I think they have the same mind, same spirit, and the competitive gene. That's really what Wes has put on this team from day one. You're going to come in and everybody's going to compete for minutes. Everybody's going to compete every day in practice. That's how you're going to play, and that's a result-oriented deal. I don't think anything's handed out this year.
Once you mentioned that the lengthy offseason allowed you to reevaluate some things, what are a few of the things that you and the coaches are going to do differently in the year ahead?
Well, I mean, from a holistic perspective, the big takeaway was we got to be more efficient with everything we do. Obviously between the lines, we want to play more efficiently, both sides of the ball. We're prioritizing our players' time. Whether it's film, practices, and just really come to the chase. Where now that we've had the vast majority of under our belt for a year, some guys are new and some guys are familiar with my style of play. We can fast track things a bit, and I think with that efficiency is prioritizing the most important things every day, making sure our guys understand there's going to be a certain standard That standard cannot dip. And it's incumbent upon myself and the staff, but also they got to take ownership of it within the locker room. I think once they do that, we'll really see a different team.
Does it help that you were familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of Will and Monty and vice versa?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, it's anytime you have a working relationship with two guys who not only have experience, but have played well in meaningful games, that goes a long way. I think that rubs off onto the group. They're going to bring a level of confidence in those situations, which I think will help uplift the rest of the room, as will Taj and Delon. Both guys have kind of been through the battles, so to speak. So I just think if you look at it, all the guys, we haven't even touched Johnny Gates, a young guy who, he's going to play for minutes this year. But and all those acquisitions have helped deepen our roster. So it's a really good, great opportunity to see where this team can go.
One thing I would add is basketball is a small town. Essentially, everybody knows everybody. It does take a while for players to get familiar, but even just on this roster, this summer we acquired Bonnie Morris, who grew up with Kuzma since second grade. DeLon Wright, who played with Kyle again. They were in prep school together, Utah together. Will, being from this area, very familiar. He's been in our building in summers previous to this. I just think the players all know each other. I think meshing on the floor, the biggest thing is to explain what's expected and give them time and patience to have the repetitions together. But by and large, it's basketball. These guys have known each other. Most of them have known each other their whole basketball careers. So it's going to be pretty fun to see them get together.
Hey Wes, how are you?
Yeah,
And Tommy, how's it going? So fascinating that, majority of the team is back, but it's still a new team. And Wes, you already spoke about the roster balance, and I'm just curious if this roster is better suited to play the defense that you're expecting, or it's just in year two, they should be expected to take a leap forward on the defensive side.
Well, I think both, honestly. You have that degree of corporate knowledge of, how we want to do things tactically. We've made some adjustments in those areas to hopefully play to the strengths of our group. But I think having to go through it, terminology and overall philosophical things we're trying to do. We look at every metric at the end of the year and go back and reevaluate. What are we doing? Does it fit? Does it work? And, from the defensive perspective, analytically, we did some good things. Now, that didn't necessarily translate, in the overall ranking, but our shot defensive profile was great. Number one in the league and holding teams, minimizing our opponent's 3-point attempts. We forced, I think third most mid-range shots. So all the numbers that you kind of look at and say, all right, well, that's a great starting point. Well, what else can we do? I think it's, our overall hand activity, multiple effort, the communication piece. And so there are a lot of little things and details I think would be better for having gone through it that should translate into not only better defensive rankings and numbers, but also wins. I do think, getting guys with a little bit more savvy, a little more physicality, a little bit more veteran presence, I think will help guys navigate certain situations. We had a lot of young guys out there, and it's nobody's fault. Corey's rookie year, and I'm not picking on him, but he wasn't in the cards as far as minutes last year until things happened. He took full advantage of it. Started 36 games. He's going to be better for it having gone through that experience. So I think the more you get those minutes, those live minutes under your belt, the more comfortable we are.
Tommy, you're a GM, not a psychic, totally get that, but on paper, is this a playoff team?
I think we just continue to improve. Obviously, that's everybody's goal, to make the playoffs. I think we've got to see the improvement on the defensive end. If we address that in the summer, find out in the winter what you did in the summer. These players are going to have to prove that they are worth what we believe that they are by getting it done on the floor. Defensively, that's a mindset. But certainly, as Wes mentioned, these guys that are coming in, they've been in the trenches. They've been in some pretty huge games. as we, conference finals, a couple guys, have been down that road. I think Delon is going to help us tremendously, especially at end of games. I mean, he's somebody that could be contending for the all defensive team. And he might not even start. Right? There's a huge opportunity for him to finish games, for all these guys to prove that they can go out and make a difference out on the floor. Playoffs, absolutely, that's a goal. That's everybody's goal. I just want to see the improvement that we believe is already happening. We got to see it translate out on the floor, and it only translates with this. It really does. So that's going to be a big challenge for all of us to manage expectations of this team, see how they're performing. I think there's enough players that have started games in the NBA. Depth is a very positive thing, but I think the competition is really what we're really stressing with the team this year. Go out and earn your minutes. And nothing's guaranteed. We certainly have players that we've added in the last year that complement Bradley Beal, what he's able to do. 2 years ago, all NBA player, 30 points a night, gets injured and has disappeared from the NBA's radar, it seems some days. But he's still one of the best players in his position in the league, bar none. Players that we've added that have come from other programs, I want to stress, from winning situations. I think that translates well, that transports to the next team. They bring that winning mentality, and certainly I think they have a very high standard of themselves, and they bring players up to their standard. And sometimes the best coaches are the players in that locker. I mentioned Todd, I'll mention Anthony Gill. Those are the guys that the bookends around Bradley and his leadership, and everybody has a different leadership style. And then I look at the guys that walk through the door with Monty, with Will, everything we hope they'd be, and probably more. We'll find out. We're all about going out and performing, not the words every time. Playoffs, strong word, that's certainly our belief. But let's get better. We're going to show the improvement. I think that'll come.
I'm curious. I guess there's talk that in the next CBA or the lower the school may lower the high school draft eligibility age. I think I'm curious if you have an opinion on that, and do you think it would be, I guess, easier for guys to make that transition now with the players that it was when the first wave of high school to NBA guys?
When it's ratified and sitting on my desk, I'll answer your question about these. I promise it's not Armageddon. This has happened before. The NBA has been through a lot of different iterations. It'll continue to improve. We just want to see the best quality product for the NBA and what's best for this player. But it's hard to talk about a hypothetical. When it's sitting on my desk and it says these are the new rules, I promise, call me. I got that. Nobody else asked the question. It's his to ask if and when that day comes.
Hey guys, Tommy, first for you, is everyone healthy and expected to report on time?
The exception of Pat Delaney, yes, we're in a good place. One of our assistant coaches, just trying to get that extra 10-day possibility, getting in drills is real contact. And so Pat has a little sore calf. All the players are available. They're all healthy. We have to monitor like KP Denny. They just came off the competitions and making sure they're in great shape. The ramp up after being at a really high level. Want to guide them in, and certainly we're going to go by Bradley with the field. I don't think Wes wants to get 3 scrimmages in first day, but we're anxious. We're anxious to get going. Everybody is healthy, but what degree are we going to expose them to activity before we go and play? Like I said, we have essentially 4 days in Japan to play 2 games. You land Wednesday night, Thursday there's a practice, Friday you play, Saturday practice, Sunday you play in the week. So it's a lot of stuff. So you got to really monitor how much you're going to blow it out over there with these players. When they come back home, get some rest, and then those last 2 preseason games, now you're into the 82 game time machine. So we have to be careful, just coming out and just getting the gas full flow. But everyone's healthy, everybody's available.
Cool. And Wes, for you, what decisions in the rotation or the starting lineup are you gonna have to make during training camp?
Well, hopefully there's difficult decisions, to Tom's point, we want it to be as competitive as possible. And kind of that mindset, of compete with each other, not against each other. It's just you want to push the guy next to you, but you want it to be in a healthy way. And I think with the group that we have, guys understand that mindset. They're trying to push the guy next to you to be the best version of them. So, the roster balance and depth gives us a little bit more flexibility to use guys certain ways, where on paper, we might say, hey, this guy should be a starter, but we may bring him off the bench because it gives us better balance from either an offensive or defensive perspective. I think that's how we want to prioritize.
You guys have both talked about how important your basket is in the competition. But I wanted to ask about Denny and just what you guys have seen from him, seeing if you're expanding his ball handling skills and his scoring skills. I just wanted to know what were your impressions of his play in your basket.
I'm very pleased, just watching the games and have conversations with Denny throughout that window, of him taking on more of a leadership role, with that group. They were counting on him to be, a big piece of what they did and how they did it. And I think just to kind of go through some of the bumps in the road gives him that feel, that experience. There's really no way to simulate it. You can't get into practice. You can't, when you have to go through it in real time. And I think that's the best learning tool. So I think these are valuable minutes for guys like Denny and KP. They're at different spectrums in their career, but I think for KP, it's just to get him out there and feel his body feels great. And he plays with a level of physicality and confidence. I think that's a great start to this season, because now he comes in a different place than what we required him, via trade back in February.
I was in Prague with Denny in game against Finland. Was a big point for him, right? To get the opportunity to send the game into overtime, the leadership role that Wes spoke of, that the ability to take that shot. When you come back here, maybe that's not going to be his role, but we know he can make that shot because he's done it before. I'm very fond of international basketball. I'm very fond of people competitions. They simulate as much stress and pressure you can put on a player outside the NBA playoffs. It's there. And his generation, they were U20 champs, U19 champs. There's a high expectation that Israel's going to continue to climb in the European rankings. Right? So every summer there's going to be some competition, and we're going to have to work together with Israel to make sure we share Danny. Obviously, his day job is very pressing and very dear to our heart, but we want all of our players to participate with their countries. I would say this: the experience that Danny had in those 5 games there, plus the run up, gave him tremendous confidence. It's seeing the work that he put in earlier in the summer translate. And I think it's obvious to our players when he walked in, he's got a little bit more swag to him. And I think everybody who watches the games, everybody giving free advice. I think players, they respect him. Talent knows talent. Thing that Danny showed in Eurobasket, he's a great playmaker. He's very confident with the ball. He loves the assist as much as he loves scoring. So he'll fit in well. If you love passing the ball, guys love playing.
Last following up on Jason's question, related to the lineups that John made, just for the 3 spots specifically, if you're looking at a lot of options there, whether it's Will, Benny, or anything like that. I'm curious how you see that.
No, I mean, I think it's wide open, to be honest with you. I think we all have thoughts. I have a lot of lineups on my board up there, and I think this window of practices and we get into training camp, or sweat practice, when we come back with the plan, it'll shake out. But to your point, we have a lot of options, from playmaking, scoring, and I think from defensive perspective, we had some odd lineups last year for a variety of reasons, but even, having Kuz play down, didn't play the 4. We were playing 4 and 5. So just having an opportunity to do that in real time, I think gives you a better snapshot of what you have and flexibility to go to and need.
And Tommy, you mentioned before about how this roster has really changed in the Sixers series. Just how do you evaluate the progress that you guys have made kind of returning over this roster? And you feel like the ceiling is now higher than maybe what that old group was, or how do you kind of evaluate the changes?
I think change is necessary when you're not winning, right? And you want to continue to add pieces, but you can't change your destination overnight. You can change your direction by the things that you do. And ultimately, we want to win a championship. To do those things, sometimes you can't skip steps. You've got to understand where you are. Develop young players. Through the draft, we have rotation players. Acquire talent. I think free agency for us really started at deadline when we acquired KP. And then free agency certainly came, and we got probably the number one, number two free agent on the board to re-sign with us. Brandon Field. And you add the long right to address defense, along with Monty and Will and what they've been able to accomplish. Bring a vet like Taj, I certainly think that talent has gotten better, but talent has got to go out and perform. And that's all of our job is to put them in positions to succeed. I keep coming back to their expectations. If you were to have players up here, as Candace would ask that question, they would say, yeah, certainly we expect that. That's what our players expect of themselves. And that's what we want. I'm managing expectations in the sense that from what you spoke of to now, I think it's a very different team, a lot more versatility, a lot more depth, and competition for minutes. I'm going to keep saying that it's paramount to the success of this team. But you can't feel like, hey, whatever I did last night is good enough to continue forward. You got to improve it every night. Giving Wes more options at closing time was very important. You know, how do you close a game? You need stops, you need scores, you diversify your lineups a lot more. I think that. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the growth of the young guys. I'm equally as excited about Wes in year two. All the things that he's learned, his staff, what they learned from last season. You know, there's a great deal of this season's success will become because of some of the tough times that we had last year.
I think to piggyback on what Tommy was saying is, you know, his job is down at, acquisitions, and our job obviously coaching. But I think the biggest thing for me is the fit. You know, the talent is one thing, and I think it's just, there's a better fit. You know, I think that does help. You know, that competitive spirit, the connectivity that we talk about. And when it fits, and guys get big picture. What is the most important thing? That's winning. I think that's that mindset. It seems to be more of a collective within the group. And I think we've seen the best.
Is that how kind of offset some of the changes that these it feels like the conference got a lot better?
Oh, for sure. And we were just talking about this the other day. We look at internally all the improvements we've made. And sometimes we neglect taking well, other teams got better too. So the level of competition, in particular in the East, is I think dramatically different than what it was, say, 5 years ago. Competitive side, there are no easy nights, and so we got to be we got to have that mindset that every night we got to go out and earn it. There's no throwaway games. There's no games you're just going to walk into and win. We're gonna have to scratch and fight to get every win we get.
Hey, Coach, good to see you.
That's
Last year, a message that resonated was you said stay the course. As you build off your second year, how does that message of staying the course resonate this year?
I think it's the same. I mean, I think you're taking a step, and that course, there are a lot of steps. The priority is to make sure we don't skip, neglect certain things, but we have to continue to forge forward. We don't want to get caught into, looking down the road too far. The most important game is the next game. That's always been my mindset. I think our approach has to remain steady. When we do that, we'll continue to kind of pound that rock until we find the result we're looking for.
And then Tommy, one of the things you said last year was wanted to add more dogs. As you look at this roster from a dog perspective, just the mentality. What do you like from the pieces you added?
I think all the guys that are new to our roster bring a whole different mentality, maybe in terms of their expectations of themselves walking in the door, defining themselves as players. It's obvious that they don't have to tell you about it, they show you. It's DeLon locking up people, Monty and Will being able to play both ends, flying around. And again, I'm going to plug Taj in there, but I'm also going to give Johnny Davis a plug. Summer League is best thing about your rookie years when it's over, best thing about Summer League when it's over. You got back in the lab and you got healthy. You're struggling a little bit. Summer League was back and stuff. And when the players got together in LA, I think everybody saw what we saw all season from him as a player in college. He is a dog. He goes hard. He loves to compete, and he's got a nasty streak. I think that whenever that emerges, he's going to earn it. But this time last year, we had Corey in a go-go jersey, and that was how it was going to be, and he ended up playing 76 games. Yeah. So I don't want to put anything on anybody, but players that have been added, I certainly think they bring another very much work ethic and a passion for basketball that we love to see. And they're not afraid to not get physical. So that's something I think we're really looking forward to. What happens, one or two players can change the way your team is perceived by the others. You have one or two tough guys, all of a sudden people are like, hey, don't mess with these guys. And it brings players that are here, not that they weren't dogs, it brings it out of them when you're surrounding, when you look to your left and your right, there's a lot more fight next to you, it comes out of you too. And I can't stress it again. Last time I'll say it, Taj is one of those guys. You know, and just in the short time that he's been in here and watching Daniel Gaffer run some tricks of the trade, but also you set a screen, make sure you lay somebody out. That's okay. You know, when you learn that from a peer, I think it means a lot more. No offense to our coaching staff, they say the same things. Sometimes the player will say in a way that players eye to eye, peer to peer, it leaves a little bit more imprint on their head. I've seen that.
Hey Wes, happy 27th birthday.
Thank
I'm curious, did Johnny have any rookie duties if they see you at the
No,
bar?
not yet. Yeah, I'm sure it's coming. But throughout the year, we don't do a ton, but they do have birthdays, celebrations. That's kind of a tradition. Not for the coaches, just for the other players. I'm sure there'll be something. The vets, and I can see, you know, Taj and those guys handing out some type of responsibility. I think it's good. It's healthy. You know, we all have to go through it, staff included. So it's a lot of fun, and I think it helps bring guys together.
And one of my favorite stories about Johnny, this summer, right? We had coach and an athletic physical therapist go visit him in lacrosse this summer. So why can John just come in town? He's like, well, I got a babysit. First time I had an NBA player use that, but it was true. His twin brother was playing in Europe. His parents went to Europe. So he had to be taking his brother and sister to school every day, doing all those things. I was killing him. I said, you gotta be kidding me. That's who he is in a nutshell. That was a pretty neat story about him and our staff that went, worked out with him at night and stuff. He took kids to school, made him breakfast, everything. But that's kind of a snapshot. You know, he grew up in lacrosse and very family oriented guy, and wasn't even thought, yeah, I've got to stay here and babysit. Okay, that's a good one. We kind of had a good laugh about it, but I think it reveals a lot about him.
Wes, with the roster versatility depth that you have, what's the balance between giving certain lineups the continuity to gel together and not necessarily, you know, trying to, for every situation, okay, I want this 5-man lineup versus this 5-man lineup?
No, I think that kind of that's the most important piece. I think it'll shake out once you get through training camp and the preseason. You'll start to see the lineups that, you know, work well together. We've seen some of it, you know, in open runs. Just you can tell there's a synergy between certain guys. But those are more situational things. End of game, fourth quarter. You know, those are need-based situations where you play offense, defense. You have timeouts to burn. You can kind of get guys in and out. That's where you look at, you know, how do you want to finish the game? Stops and offense, you balance them both. You know, it gives you a lot of guys you can play with.
Tommy, you've been around this organization a long time. There always seems to be a sense of optimism going into training camp in years past. I guess, why do you think that this year, you know, can stand out maybe compared to last year's?
I always focus forward, but I really genuinely believe that the group of guys that we've assembled for this year, plus what the coaching staff has done, it's remarkable to see. I sleep better at night knowing that each position has a little bit more depth to it. Guys with starter experience, they're coming off the bench. That just gives you a little bit more of a good sense of where we're headed. Every season, you're right. Everybody's undefeated. Everybody thinks these things, but I've seen enough in my years to really know when you panic going into camp because you're missing this or someone's hurt. Right now, so far, it's been really chill on that end. But seeing the growth of our young guys, adding the better people, knowing that Bradley's healthy, knowing that KP and what he can do, watching Kyle as he gets ready to take another step in his career, it gives us a great sense, great feeling. We got to call on Josh. He's trying so hard. I'm not jumping the line. Keep going up.
If only you had managed the expectations of my question as well as manage the expectations on the
Next
playoffs.
question.
It's a matter of philosophy, it's a matter of preference. Let's say everybody's healthy. Are you inclined to start games more with a defensive lineup as opposed to a more offensive?
I don't know if there's, I'm not trying to guide the question, or dodge the question rather. I think it's, you want to put your best unit out there. To start the game. And some nights it's gonna look better than others. Bottom line match, it's a matchup league. But I'm not going to sacrifice one for the other until we get in those situations where, that dictates what we need. I anticipate us being, much better defensively across the board. So I think it's incumbent on our guys to continue to get that buy-in, to hold that standard and hold each other more accountable on that end of the floor. I think once we do that, it'll take care of itself, but I don't think you weight your unit one way or the other. Start the game, that's not something that I would feel comfortable doing.
Hi, coach. I have a great question about Rui Hachimura. What kind of expectation do you have this season?
Oh, huge expectations, honestly. Just having, him in the second half of the season, to see where he is now compared to then, seems like he's in a different place. I know last year he added a 3-point shot to his game. So spent a lot of time this summer working on spatially, playing on the perimeter. That's just a new iteration for him. Ball handling, finishing, continuing to shoot the 3-point shot well. And just watching him in the open runs, he's playing with an air of confidence. That's it's remarkable. It's really exciting to see him, Kyle, these guys go at it. It's fun to watch.
What's just the significance of you being a head coach going to Latvia? If you could just give us a little peek of what that time was like, whether you guys talked about basketball, more about family, just seeing him in his natural habitat, but just the significance of that. I know it happens in NBA,
Yeah.
but still seems pretty cool.
Well, I think it's, for me personally, it's an experience. Never been to that. So having the opportunity to get over there and just for a small window, 3 days, tour the city, and it's, of course, to my benefit to tour the city
With him?
one of those things, from Latvia, and just organically, just spend time, watch practice, get an opportunity to see what they do, how they use him, some of the offensive and defensive things that I think benefit, their team, but also him specifically. And then just spend time, a lot of dinners, lunches. I think that's just a way to just further strengthen the relationship where it's, they know we're fully vested in him as a player. That's a given, but, also as a person. And, I personally want what's best for him. And I know when he's at his best, he's going to help this franchise. So just see him flourish in that environment, to see him on his own turf, so to speak. There's a comfort level with that. And, be around his teammates, spend time with the coaching staff. It was just a terrific opportunity.
Lastly,
I don't want to embarrass Wes, okay, but
go ahead.
I was with Latvia in Great Britain when they were playing final qualifier, but the coaching staff couldn't say enough about the time he spent with them and really helping them because they were new to him too. That they have a fantastic new coach. He's Italian, the first non-Latvian ever to coach their national team. I can't say it enough. It is a huge thing for Latvia to get to the World Cup. It's everything about that. It was a big pressure situation actually. Chris has to get back to the national team. So I was at their game in Newcastle, spent time with him, and that was the first thing out of their coach's mouth. Coach West was fantastic, and all the time he spent with their staff and everything. When you travel basketball, you have a responsibility as an ambassador of your team, as an ambassador of the NBA. Most people understand that. Sometimes they don't. But West took it to an extreme with their staff. They were so grateful. I think it meant the world for KP to come out there and see somebody on their own turf. Well, I could see the sights. It wasn't his hometown, but he spent a ton of time in Riga. We got to reconnect with Davies and a couple of other young players and stuff. It's wonderful cultural exchange, coaching exchange. Like I said, it's a small world. Basketball is a very small town. The head coach of that team. Now with Wes, that they're on the phone, they're texting each other, asking questions. It's a neat thing that happens.
Just one medical question. Is there any plan with the medical team to have Kristaps on some sort of limited playing time, or no back-to-backs or anything like that? Any plan like that?
No.
Okay.
Wes, what type of impact could DeLon Wright make defensively for you guys?
You know, I think it'll make a big impact. You know, it's I think it's an underrated, you know, free agent acquisition, in my opinion. You know, he's played, you know, lead guard, combo guard. He has the flexibility of being out there with, you know, dynamic scores. You know, obviously like Brad did so in Atlanta with Trae Young. You know, so there's a fit, you know, and his ability to impact the game on the defensive end is that's we've seen, you know, and I think it's important. He embraces it, and when having conversations with him during that free agent window, he made a comment. I've never heard a player, you know, just asking, "What are your personal numbers?" And you know, a lot of guys would go into different numbers and metrics, and he said, "I want to make it a defensive team, all defensive team." First time I've ever heard. And I think that really stuck with me. That's his mindset. He knows that's his role. He can impact winning in that way. But I don't think he gets enough credit, you know, as a lead guard. Very capable of playing. You cross match, you can guard small forwards. So gives you the flexibility to downsize at times. You know, you can match up the way you want defensively, but not put 3 playmakers out on the floor. So I was really, you know, excited to have a guy of his caliber. Of course, his experience, his playoff background, you know, adding that into the fold, I think, relevant. Yeah.
Coach, sticking with the defensive theme, you said that your team did a great job limiting threes and mid-range shots. Is there a list of things that you have defensively that you are expecting from the team this season?
As far as improvement?
Improvement.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
A long list. And I think I didn't want to look at everything we did, kind of reevaluate with our staff. Because sometimes it's easy to get down when you look at the big picture and it didn't go as well as you wanted. When you start going through some of the, you know, individual metrics, you're like, well, that's not terrible. How can we get marginally better in that area? And the marginal gain in a number of areas will hopefully equal significant gain overall. I think having gone through it for our guys is a big piece of it. We have made some tactical changes, nothing completely divergent, but ways to enhance what we do, how we do it. And hopefully, you know, our guys, you know, they seem to have bought into some of the new things quickly, which hopefully expedites, you know, how it translates between the lines.
Well, so along those lines, KP's individual defensive metrics are quite good, actually, in different areas.
So that's such a surprise.
I don't think people think of that when they think of him. So how do you systemically kind of, I don't know if you want to funnel stuff to him, but how do you, you know, schematically take advantage of the fact that he's pretty good at the rim?
Well, I think that to your point, he's not regarded as such. We saw in that small window toward the end of the year, with him specifically in pick and rolls. He does a terrific job of baiting guys into that mid-range shot. He knows when you step up and contest. He's got enough length, you know, rim protection. You always want to try and get downhill at him. You know, we're not to the point where we want to funnel teams. You know, I think big priority for us is our paint defense. And that's not just pick and roll. It's, you know, our ability to close out and contain. You know, shrinking behind those containments, you know, to kind of limit driving avenues. So there's a lot of layers to each one of those things, which will help, you know, KP specifically at the rim. But you know, I think, you know, once we kind of clean up a lot of areas, I think it will help a number of people. You know, but I think he does a terrific job, you know, and he doesn't get enough credit for it.
And how much of that is Monty in his ability to kind of stay in front of guys, or at least be in a contest position or in a recovery position?
Right. Well, the recovery piece is big, you know, we have to have that, you know, help with the, you know, mentality of helping again. And, you know, on the ball, it's, you know, trust your help, don't rely on it. that mindset of taking that challenge and being able to stay in front for at least one game. Now we can bring help to you. The way the game is officiated, the way, the spacing, volume of 3-point shooting, really tilts toward the offensive end. So doing things a little bit different on the defensive end, getting a little more creative. Some of the things we do with special players hopefully helps, on those off nights. But having a base now, in place from last year, adding and augmenting a few things, hopefully will translate.
Hey, Wes, when you sat down this offseason and just kind of took a look at the year from a you standpoint in terms of what you were able to do coming in year one and anything, was there anything you said, I really want to do that differently going into year two, or year two for me is about kind of this in terms of my
What kind of goes
coaching?
back to the efficiency, how I work, how we as a staff operate. Well, I think last year there was a lot of self-replication. So just trying to streamline, how we prepare.
What do you mean by self?
Well, I mean, it's, I've always worked as an assistant, so working less as an assistant, more as a head coach and delegate, being able to be comfortable with that. I think I have a terrific staff, very competent, hardworking, organized. I felt at times that we were all kind of doing the same thing. And so just kind of cleaning up, each individual coach's responsibility. Hopefully that leads into more efficiency with how we do things, how we prioritize our players' time. And then therefore now we work more efficiently, we practice more efficiently. And getting back to Tommy's point, that spirit of competitiveness of practicing how we want to play. At times, I think we got into just checking the box and, hey, make sure we're doing this, and not prioritizing the most important thing. So we've had these conversations, we've kind of, ironed some things out, but I'm excited to see the workflow, how things are changing.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.